All right, everyone, welcome back to a brand new New World video. Today, what we're going to be doing is going to be taking a deep dive into every single artifact that can grant us damage or what they can provide us by going through the base weapon damage and empowerment damage. But before we go into the details, I just want to thank every single one of you guys for subscribing, showing your support, sharing and liking, commenting down below. We have made it to 1.1 thousand subscribers. Believe it or not, I had to redo this entire intro for everyone just because we already made it to the goal that I wanted to set forth for ourselves. But we are already at 1.1. Let's get it to 1.15 and let's go 30 likes on the video. It helps push the algorithm to new viewers and those who are new to New World Aeturnum. And again, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for your guys' support. So again, shout out to everyone and especially Robert Williams. We had a new subscriber that was 13 days ago when I had the software open. So what are we doing today? Well, like I mentioned, we're going to be testing out our damage. What makes our max bow damage max bow damage? So with that, we are going to set some parameters. We're going to do 2 combos. And of course, we're going to keep our constitution at a minimum of 150. We are not going to go below or over that parameter. We're sticking to 150 con. We get to change our strength, dex, int, and focus however we see fit. That will help us get to higher damage. Now, this is subjective. You guys can change your own parameters if you so choose. If you like to be at 100 constitution or even 50 or maybe even 5 con, go ahead and do so. You'll definitely see an improvement in your damage, but for the baseline, for an all-rounded build, we're going to stay at 150 con. So how are we going to calculate our damage? Well, in this segment, we're going to talk about base weapon damage and empowerment. With empowerment, we'll start here. There is a cap of 50% of empowerment in New World. On any gear, there is an empowerment. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. For instance, what counts as an empowerment is the electrified elemental ward I have attached to my helmet and the lightning harnessing that you see below. And then lastly, the endless thirst. This is going to be our empowering toast. On potion drink, gain 10% empower for 8 seconds, 10-second cooldown. Now those are ways we can count our empowerments. Sometimes they're clear, sometimes they're not. So together, we are going to go over our empowerment cap, and we're also going to count and calculate our base weapon damage. Now, currently from what I know in the game, New World does not have a base weapon damage cap. If there is, it's pretty high. I'm thinking it's going to be in the ballpark of 200%. For the next segment, we are actually going to calculate our base damage and then our empowerment. I'm only going to do this once, and then you guys can determine how you're going to calculate your own empowerment and base weapon damage moving forward. And of course, on the top left of the screen, I'm going to highlight the current build that we have with the empowerment and base weapon on the top left of the screen. All right, for this build, this is the max damage bow build at 699 gear score. We're going to count our empowerment together. So as we can see right now, we have electrified elemental ward on all 5 of our gear, which is going to grant us 2% more lightning damage. And 4 of our gear will have lightning harnessing, which will grant us 2% lightning damage. Our endless thirst is going to grant us 10% empowerment. Our powerful honing stone is going to grant us 7%. Our lightning damage on our ring is going to give us an additional 7%. And if we head into our weapon mastery for our bow, we have our evasive tactics, which will grant us an additional 15%. With that all being calculated, we are currently at 57% that we're sitting on easy empowerment with this current build setup. Now we are 7% over the cap limit, and we will not be able to see that 7% damage leak into our combos. That 7% is completely gone. Now, what if I told you that this build can actually go further beyond 57%? Again, I'm not counting the invigorating punishment, which is at a 10%, which in a perfect world, let's go ahead and calculate that. We're now at 67%. And if we head over into our attributes, in our dexterity tree at 250, it says gain 10% in power for 3 seconds after successfully dodging an attack. So where we currently stand within our empowerment for this build, we can reach 77% in our empowerment in this build. Now again, reminder, there's only 50% of that you are able to use that will go into your damage. Let's go ahead and count our base weapon damage. What classifies as that? We're gonna go ahead and start in our attributes tab. For the strength tree, we're going to have a 5% light attack damage, and then we're going to have a 10% heavy attack damage. Now, for the sake of the testing, we aren't going to count our 5% light damage. We're going to go ahead and just stick with our 10 heavy attack damage, because we're going to be utilizing our heavy attack throughout this testing. In our dexterity tree, we're going to start with 5% base damage while at full health, and then we're going to have a 5% more when our stamina is not full. And then next, we're going to have 10% bonus backstab and headshot damage. And moving on into our weapon mastery, we're going to go ahead and count our bow base weapon damage, which will include the long range, giving us 10% more damage when your foe is at 10 meters away. Aim true, which is going to give us 10% with a heavy. Finishing shot, if your opponent's below 50% health, you gain a 15% more base weapon damage. Surprise attack will give us 15% more damage on the first attack as long as you haven't hit them within 10 seconds. And then with mark, if your foe is suffering from a debuff, you'll gain an additional 10% base weapon damage. And going into our build, believe it or not, our Boltcaster, our electrified passive, will grant us 20% more damage. And then when we have haste applied, we will actually go ahead and use our winged leather shoes speedy perk, which will grant us 10% more base damage while hasted. In a perfect world, if everything were to apply, we would be at 135% base weapon damage. I'm actually going to go ahead and cut this one out, the plus 15% duration to damage over time effects. That's actually not base weapon, it's just the damage over time effects. So with that being corrected, we're at 120 base weapon damage. And now that we got all of that calculated and out of the way, moving forward from this rest of the video, I'm not going to calculate base weapon damage and empowerment. I'll let you calculate that on your own. But besides, I'm going to place the accurate number up above on the top left of the screen each time we change builds or artifacts. Okay, for the next segment, this is the combo that we're going to be utilizing. We will be utilizing our Endless Thirst to give us our empowerment of 10%. Within our weapon mastery tree, we're then going to roll, giving us evasive tactics procced, which will then allow us to utilize long range, because we're going to be 10 meters away from our opponent, which is going to use aim true because we're going to be doing a charged heavy attack, which will then use finishing shot, which I'm thinking is going to go into the dummy because I believe dummies do have less than half health, which is going to proc our surprise attack, which will give us 15% damage. And in our attribute tree, we are going to utilize our 5% base damage while stamina is not full, which is going to be procced from our evasive tactics, and not to mention the 10% heavy attack damage that's going to be included. And I believe that's everything that we're going to be going into, which then we'll now see the final result of this combo. And I apologize, this is going to be the current build setup that we're utilizing for the first test for our max weapon damage, which is 50 strength, 410 dexterity, and 150 con. I do have a food buff coming from our banana pudding. All right, so what does it look like? Well, we got to stay 10 meters away from our opponent. We have to hit them in the head. It's going to take our buff. We're going to roll 10 meters away for a charged heavy for 12,094 damage. So that's going to be our first hit on an opponent, of course, if those parameters were met perfectly. It's not going to be like that every time. And of course, dummies don't have armor, so we're going to see the maximum damage that the bow can provide. So what if I told you that we can actually go further beyond that damage? I do have a second combo that I could utilize here that will elevate it even further. So what that is going to be looking like is, instead of using our surprise attack by initiating the first strike, we're going to waste that by utilizing our empowering explosive arrow, which will grant us a 21% more empowerment to our next attack. Believe it or not, we are already empowered capped, but for some reason, we are doing a lot more damage in this combo, and I'm going to show you. So first things first is we're going to proc our empowering potion, roll 10 meters away for a headshot for 13,047. Okay, so that's going to do it for our first build that we've been utilizing for a while now, which is our max bow damage. Next up, our next build is going to be utilizing the Tumbler Feetwraps. Now, this artifact was the one I used prior to switching out with winged leather shoes. So with that being attached, we are not utilizing a rune glass. They are pretty expensive to wear, and I did just recently update the Tumbler Feetwraps, so of course I lost the rune glass that was attached, so that empowerment is not going to be on there. From our last build, we can easily reach 77%, but with Tumbler Feetwraps, we are actually gaining a 15% more empower when you successfully dodge an attack. And that takes us to 92% empowerment that we can reach in this build currently. And again, our empowerment cap is at 50. So let's go ahead and throw that number up on the top left if it's not already there. And as well as our base weapon damage, all calculated up on the top left of the screen. All right, so with all that calculated, let's go ahead and begin our combo. And yet again, we're gonna empower ourselves with our potion. Roll 10 meters away for a long shot heavy, which is gonna grant us 11,506. So that was that. Our next combo is gonna utilize the explosive arrow. Keep in mind, we don't have empowering explosive arrow attached to Tumbler Feetwraps. So we're gonna see how that combo plays. So what we're gonna do is empower, explosive arrow, roll 10 meters away, headshot for 11,055. So we actually lost out on damage in that specific combo. So if we compare the damages between the two builds, you'll see that the wing leather shoes has a edge over the Tumbler Feetwraps. And I'll let you guys decide if it's significant enough or not. Maybe you guys like the fortifying that the Tumbler Feetwraps provides you, which is a huge benefit, and the healing factor that Tumbler Feetwraps provide as well. So what do we have in store for us next? Well, this one's a bit of a joke. If you guys haven't seen my video on Creed boots, I'd recommend you guys go take a look at it. It's probably one of my favorite videos I've ever put out on YouTube. With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and utilize this because Creed boots actually has a pretty cool perk. Now with Creed boots, it has an ambush ability. Deal 15% more damage and 25 critical chance as long as you haven't hit a target within 20 seconds. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? That actually comes from our surprise attack, which is pretty much the same thing as long as we haven't hit a target within 10 seconds. The first shot damage is going to be pretty great when it comes to Creed boots, but anything after that, I believe that these are now rendered useless within the next 20 seconds, but I'm unsure how it works. Does it reset after 20 seconds? Or do I really not have to attack my target within the 20 seconds for it to be activated again? So with Creed boots, with everything combined in a perfect world, if everything was activated, we are going to be at a 75% empowerment. And for our base weapon damage, if I'm calculating everything correctly, is 125% base weapon damage. Keep in mind on the two builds that we had before, nothing has changed. We're still at 50 strength, 410 dex, and 150 con. And if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like down below. It only takes 2 seconds. If you made it this far, again, thank you guys so much. Let's get into the testing for Creed boots. All right, so what is this gonna look like? We're gonna do our combo now. We're gonna drink 10 meters away, long shot heavy for 12,183 damage. And for the second combo with Creed boots, we're gonna go ahead and empower ourselves. Explosive arrow, roll 10 meters away for a long shot heavy to the head for 11,055. So we're kind of seeing a trend that empowering explosive arrow does provide a lot of damage. So if you're not running that perk, why aren't you running that perk? And now for the controversial attuned leather pants. A lot of people in the comments were telling me that attuned leather is going to be the best artifact for bow users to get the maximum damage out of your bow. Okay, so if you made it this far, how could I have been so dumb? We actually have been missing out on 15% extra damage, or adding it to our calculations, because of the light equip load that we've been using. I totally forgot. So again, if you guys have been yelling at me in the comments this whole time, I apologize. I will be sure to like and comment back to you guys for sure. But even then, it still doesn't matter. The numbers are still the same regardless of calculation error or not. So just keep in mind the calculations that we had previously, and moving forward, we are just add the 15% on top. We're going to keep it consistent. We're going to keep this out of our calculations still, because we haven't been consistent with the other ones before. So we're going to leave it out, but keep in mind this is still there and it's still calculated. All right, so again, in a perfect world, everything is set up beautifully. We would be at 71 empowerment maximum with this current build setup. And before we calculate our weapon damage, we actually do have to make some adjustments to our attributes. And this is going to be the current build setup that we're doing. And someone in the comments did say if you utilize your 50 strength and utilize 150 intelligence, you can really go all out with your boltcaster, because our boltcaster is 99% elemental damage. Now, just to include everything, we would actually be at 135% base weapon damage if we had a damage over time effect applied. Okay, so theoretically, this should work. We have a higher base weapon damage applied. We're utilizing intelligence, which is giving us more elemental damage to our attacks. So we should see a higher number, right? Everything is locked in. Let's go ahead and utilize our combo for Attuned leather pants. The combo is going to be drinking a potion for 10% empowerment for a long range heavy for 10,797. Now that's not bad. Don't get me wrong. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe you guys are seeing a different number on your end with this testing. Maybe your build is just better than mine, or it's attuned better for it. So let's go ahead and utilize the second combo, which is the explosive arrow. We are going to be kicking in mark damage and damage over time effects. So we're going to empower ourselves for an explosive shot. Roll. Heavy charge shot to the head for 10,601. So let's go ahead and throw the numbers on the screen. Holy crap, from what I'm not looking because I can't see the numbers right now, Creed Boots is in the lead by 120 damage above our winged leather shoes. So what we have last for our testing, because this is the only artifacts that I currently have, it's going to be our Nature's Wrath artifact. Now, before we even calculate empowerment and base weapon damage when it comes to Nature's Wrath, I'm going to tell you straight off the bat, this is the worst artifact for you to use when using a bow. Reason why is most of our empowerments that come from bow are time-based. Why does that matter, you're probably asking me? Well, it's because if we take a look here at Nature's Wrath, Nature's Blessing says limited duration empowers expire instantly, and durationless empowers potency is reduced by 50%. Now, to be specific, what is duration empowerment? Well, duration empowerment is going to be coming from our Endless Thirst. It gives us 8 seconds of empowerment. That's completely gone. And again, for another example, for durationless empowerment is going to come from our Powerful Honing Stone, which is going to be a 7% cut in half, which is 3.5% empowerment. So from what I can currently count with Nature's Wrath attached, because all other durations of empowerment is completely gone, the other durationless empowerment that we do have and can utilize is only giving us 16%. But how is our base weapon damage going to perform? And with everything calculated, we have 130% base weapon damage with Nature's Wrath attached. So again, with our base testing again, we're going to empower ourselves, which is not going to matter. And for 10 meters away for the headshot damage, we only got 8,700 and something. I didn't even care to see it. It was so abysmal. And just to add insult to injury, we are back at 50 strength, 407 dex, and 150 constitution. Okay, so what is the second combo going to look like? Well, we're going to empower ourselves, even though it's not going to really matter. Roll 10 meters away for a headshot for 9,441 damage. And there you have it. The results are in. Let's go ahead and compare all the builds that we had tested today and see which one stacks up against each other. So far from what I'm seeing, Creed Boots are on top, but I think I'm just going to stick with my winged leather shoes. They're the most consistent. So that's going to be it for the testing. We've been recording for a whole hour, and I do have some PvP clips to show in the end just to keep this video a little bit more entertaining. I know there was a lot of numbers on the screen. I hope you guys learned something. If you already knew it, or if I miscounted something, please correct me in the comments down below. But the results are the results. The numbers and the damage that you see is the damage that you see. That's pretty much it. Again, it is subjective. I only set the parameters for myself, keeping at 150 constitution. And again, it is up to you if you want to go for 5 con, 50 con, 200 con, which is what I'm more comfortable with. But again, I just wanted to do it at 150. With that being said, leave a like down below, comment what you guys would like to see next. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for the PvP clips after the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great weekend or week, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Well, that's an easy kill. Poor dude. Nice. You don't. Did I just kill him? I think I just killed him in 2 shots. There we go. Nice easy kill. Wait for him to roll. We're 13-2. A lot of our eliminations were not counted for because the sound effects aren't working.